Week 3 of the NFL season is here, and our Houston Texans take on the 0-2 New York Giants. Now, both teams are 0-2. You can say both teams are clearly underperforming. Both these teams have a lot of talent, yet here they are 0-2. Both these teams are pretty much in the same boat. 0-2, you still have a chance to, come out of the hole you dug yourself into and make something of your season. At 0-3, yeah, you're pretty much looking at a lost season. So both of these teams are going to come out desperate to save their season, so some things that were probably unexpected to happen might happen. So anyways, with that being said, let's get into some of these matchups. Let's start off with the Giants offense versus the Texans defense. Now, the running game. The Titans run game versus the Texans run defense. The Texans have done a pretty good job of stopping the run, even though the stats don't really say so. I think they do a really good job of containing the run. The reason the numbers don't look so good is because every now and then Jeremy Hill or the Titans running backs would bust out with a slightly big run, 9 yards, 8 runs, but it wasn't that common. Most of the time it was a 2-3 yard gain from both teams. So the Texans have done a pretty good job of stopping the run, and the Giants have struggled running the ball with Saquon Barkley, and it falls on the offensive line. The Giants offensive line just straight up isn't good. From left to right, there is no one on that offensive line that is good. They can't run block, they can't pass protect, they can't do anything. So even though I like Saquon Barkley, I don't think he's going to be able to get anything going against the Texans. I think the Texans are going to straight up stop the run. Now, when we move on to the passing attack, then we got some problems. As you guys know, going into the season, a lot of fans were terrified of how bad the secondary could be. 2 games in, this secondary has been good. But, when you look at the receivers the Texans have played, Chris Hogan, Philip Dorsett, Cordero Patterson, Corey Davis, Tajay Sharp, Taywan Taylor, these are all bottom of the roster players, bottom tier players, players that aren't really good. When you look at the Giants receivers, you got Odell Beckham, top 5 wide receiver in the league. You got Sterling Shepard, who's also pretty good. You got Evan Ingram, who's just a complete mismatch at the tight end position. Like, he is too big to be a receiver, way too fast for a regular tight end. And as you guys know, Gronkowski destroyed the Texans week 1. And Evan Ingram might be able to do the same thing. I say might because Gronkowski is just in the league of his own. He's just a monster. So Evan Ingram might be able to get something going. And then you throw in Saquon Barkley, who last week had 14 receptions. Yes, it was for 80 yards. Yes, most of his receptions came from Eli Manning dump-offs. But, he's still a receiving threat. I honestly just do not see this Texans secondary being able to stop Odell Beckham, Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram, Saquon Barkley. They just have too many weapons. Now, pass protection. Okay, look. The Giants have the worst offensive line in the NFL, and I don't think it's even close. The Texans should have one of the best pass rushes in the NFL, but Through 2 weeks, they only have 3 sacks. 2 of those sacks came from DJ Reader, the nose tackle. Nose tackles aren't supposed to get sacks. And the other sack, the third sack, comes from Duke Ejiofor, your backup pass rusher, edge rusher, whatever you want to call him. So this brings a question. Is the Texans' pass rush trio overrated? I mean, Watt, he's been making plays in the run game, but he's just not getting to the quarterback. He's a step too slow. I think he's missed like a couple sacks because he's been a step too slow. In the past, JJ easily gets those. But maybe he is rusty, or maybe this is just the Watt we have now. Dominant in the run game, not there in pass rushing wise. Merciless, the only one I would really give the rusty excuse for is Merciless, since he did miss part of training camp and all of preseason nursing a hamstring injury. So Merciless is really the only one I would give the rusty excuse for. Maybe even Clowney, and Clowney didn't even play against Tennessee, and he had against the Patriots a pretty bad game pass rushing wise, but given the Patriots were kind of going for his knees the whole game, playing dirty, I guess you could say. So I don't know, but dating back to last year, the Texans pass rush trio hasn't really been able to produce as well as they sound on paper. So I think this week, against the worst offensive line in the NFL, if these 3 guys cannot get some pressure on Eli Manning, they're overrated. I mean, I hate to say it, but come on. Enough is enough. It's time to stop talking about it and time to actually go out on the field and actually perform, get some sacks, get some pressures, because it's outrageous, man. I mean, last week you were going up against a backup, or actually a 4th string left tackle and a practice squad right tackle, and Merciless and Watt were inconsistent in the passing game. Watt almost had a sack, but again, a step too slow. Hopefully, it is rustiness. Hopefully they do get something going. But if they're going to get something going ever, this is the game against the worst offensive line in the league. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to say the Texans pass rush will dominate this Giants offensive line. Now let's move on to the Texans offense versus the Giants defense. Now, the run game, in terms of the running backs, I feel like Alfred Blue and Lamar Miller will have an up and down game. The Texans do have the best running team in the NFL through 2 weeks. The Giants, in terms of stopping the running back, they do a pretty good job. So it's pretty much strength versus strength. So I think the Texans will have their place and the Giants will also have their place. But when you factor in Deshaun Watson's mobility, Deshaun Watson's running ability, I think the Giants will struggle to stop Deshaun Watson. They'll struggle to keep contained because Blake Bortles and Dak Prescott both had 40 rushing yards on the Giants. So the Giants clearly struggle stopping the run from the quarterback. So if the Texans implement some read option in there, some RPOs, they can definitely get Deshaun Watson going in the run game as well and really use that, I guess, as an extension to their run game, you can say. Now, in the pass game, the Texans receivers versus that secondary. Okay, look, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins are probably the best wide receiver duo in the NFL. Arguably, you can argue Antonio Brown and Juju, but definitely the top 2 duo in the NFL. I like Eli Apple, and I really like Jack Rabbit, Janoris Jenkins. I think Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins can really, get going against these guys. They're both good players, but I think DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller together are just too dangerous. They complement each other really well. One thing that does worry me, though, is Landon Collins. If you guys recall, last year against the Seahawks, Earl Thomas baited Deshaun Watson into a pick. Earl Thomas is an elite safety. Landon Collins is also an elite safety. I feel like Landon Collins definitely has the ability to bait Deshaun Watson into some picks, because Deshaun Watson is indeed still a young quarterback. He's only started, what? I think this might be his 10th start. So he's still, getting acclimated to the NFL. And I think Landon Collins can definitely bait Deshaun Watson. But I do think DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller, even Bruce Ellington, Coty, if he plays, I think they'll have a good game against this Giants secondary. Now, the running backs, the Texans just don't use them in the pass game. I think Pat D. Stat said they only have like 5 targets through 2 games. They need to utilize them more, but as of right now they haven't, so I'm not gonna really talk about them because they just don't use them. Same thing with the tight ends. And pass protection. I think the Texans offensive line will hold up well. I think Nick Martin has done really good. Nick Martin is a really good center. Through 2 games, I think he only has 1 pressure, and I think that's like 10th in the NFL in terms of pressures allowed by offensive linemen, or centers at least. Zach Fulton is also pretty good. I think he has like 4 pressures allowed in 2 games, and Sunil Kalamedi has allowed, I want to say 5. So interior line is fine. Martinez Rankin and Davenport, I think Martinez Rankin has allowed like 9 pressures, while Davenport has allowed around 13, both throughout 2 games. So definitely all the pressure, when it does get there, it gets there through the tackles. The tackles are the big concern. And I just don't think the Giants have the pass rushers to really, make Rankin and Davenport both struggle. Olivier Vernon can only be at 1 spot, so whoever Olivier Vernon is playing against, he'll have a decent game there. But this time around, I think 1 tackle will have a good game. And if you really look at the numbers, Deshaun Watson has an average time to throw of 3.43 seconds. That is 2nd in the NFL. So this offensive line has been better. It has had its moments where it's like, what are they doing, But for the most part, I'd say they've really surprised in the run game. And the pass game, it's an improvement from last year. So pass protection wise, I do think the offensive line will have their best game yet, because I just don't think the Giants have the pass rushers to really expose them. And another thing people have to consider, these 5 guys, this is the first time they've ever played together, so it is going to take some time for them to, get to know each other, gel, how they say. I really hate that term, but yeah, they do have to gel. And I know it's frustrating seeing the offensive line struggle sometimes, but they do need some time, man. I think it's good that they're going into the 3rd game together, and it's all about continuity, really. I think if they keep playing together, if Rankin and Davenport get some more experience, I think they'll be fine by the end of the year. Now, I'm not saying they're going to be superstars, but better than what they are right now. And Calamity, Fulton, Nick Martin, I think they need more time together. With that time, I think they will be able to become, I guess, a dominant interior offensive line, because Nick Martin and Zach Fulton are capable of that. Calamity, I've said it before, I'll say it again, he's an average player, but you can definitely get worse than Calamity. Now, keys to the game. I have two. Discipline. No penalties. Penalties, last game against Tennessee, they killed drives and they continued Tennessee drives. So if they can limit the penalties and, not stop their own drives and not keep the opponent's drives alive, I think they'll be fine. And the second one, I think this one's huge. They absolutely need to get pressure on Eli Manning. They have to, because if they don't, Eli Manning with those weapons will shred you. They won't even shred you. Like, they'll dominate you, because I don't trust the secondary versus all these weapons. I just don't. This is the secondary's first real test, and if they're left on an island versus those weapons, they will lose. I'm sorry. I love Tyrann Mathieu. I love the new Kareem Jackson. I love Aaron Coleman. But those weapons are just too good. Now, my prediction for the game. I have the Texans winning 20-9. I think the Texans pass rush will finally wake up. The deadly trio, which is Whitney Merciless, J.J. Watt, and Jadeveon Clowney, will dominate up front and put pressure on Eli Manning and not give Eli Manning time to throw to Odell Beckham, Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard, Saquon Barkley, and all these other weapons they have. In terms of offense, I do think this Giants defense is a little underrated. They have talent in the secondary that can definitely contend with our talent in the receiving weapons, and they've done a pretty good job of stopping the run, so I think they'll definitely contain our number one ranked rushing attack. But in the end, I see the Texans finally bouncing back because they are at home. So the Texans get their first win of the season, while the Giants fall to 0-3. Anyways, that's all I really have for you guys. Be sure to comment down below your own predictions. Be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.